have a PhD in psychology, 12 million followers, and I haven't seen a private practice client in 6 months. And honestly, I'm not the only licensed therapist questioning everything about how we're supposed to help people in 2025. Right now, thousands of qualified mental health professionals are walking away from traditional therapy practice, and the reasons why should terrify anyone who cares about the future of mental health care. What I'm about to tell you reveals a crisis in our profession that nobody's talking about publicly. Stick around because reason number 4 is going to completely change how you think about the therapy industry. And reason number 6 explains why getting quality mental health care is about to become much harder than it already is. But first, let me tell you something that might shock you. The average therapist in private practice makes less money than a retail manager while carrying the emotional weight of dozens of people's trauma every single week. And that's just the beginning of why so many of us are reconsidering everything. The mental health field is experiencing what researchers are calling the Great Therapy Exodus, and it's happening at the exact moment when more people need mental health support than ever before. So let's dive into the 6 major reasons why licensed therapists are abandoning traditional practice and what this means for anyone trying to get quality mental health care. Reason number 1. The insurance system is destroying therapeutic relationships. This is the number 1 complaint I hear from every therapist I know, and it's absolutely soul-crushing to watch. Insurance companies are essentially dictating how therapy should work, and their priorities have nothing to do with what's actually best for clients. Most insurance plans limit clients to 8 to 12 therapy sessions per year. Let me put that in perspective. You're expected to heal decades of trauma, learn new coping skills, and fundamentally change ingrained thought patterns in roughly 3 months of weekly sessions. It's not just unrealistic, it's insulting to the complexity of human psychology. But here's what's even worse. Insurance companies require therapists to provide diagnoses after just 1 or 2 sessions to justify continued treatment. This forces us to label people with mental health conditions before we've had time to really understand what they're dealing with. It's like being asked to perform surgery before you've finished examining the patient. The administrative burden is absolutely crushing. Therapists spend more time filling out insurance paperwork than they do actually helping people. We have to justify every session, provide detailed treatment plans with specific measurable goals, and constantly prove that our clients are sick enough to deserve continued care. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. Insurance companies regularly deny coverage for sessions they deem unnecessary, even when the therapist and client both know the work isn't finished. I've watched clients make genuine progress, only to have their sessions cut off because some administrator decided they were well enough. The financial pressure this creates is unsustainable. Most therapists who accept insurance make between $30 to $50 per session after overhead costs, administrative time, and the percentage taken by insurance companies. That's barely above minimum wage for someone who spent 6 to 8 years in graduate school and carries massive student debt. Reason number 2. Burnout rates among therapists have reached crisis levels. The statistics on therapist burnout are absolutely staggering, and they're getting worse every year. Studies show that over 60% of mental health professionals report symptoms of burnout, with many considering leaving the field entirely within the next 5 years. But here's what's really happening behind those numbers. Therapists are absorbing trauma from dozens of clients simultaneously while having minimal support for processing their own emotional reactions. We're expected to be emotionally available for other people's pain while maintaining perfect professional boundaries and never letting our own struggles affect our work. The COVID pandemic pushed this crisis over the edge. Suddenly, everyone needed mental health support, but there weren't enough therapists to meet the demand. Those of us who stayed in practice found ourselves working longer hours, seeing more clients, and dealing with increasingly severe cases without adequate time for self-care or professional development. The isolation of the profession makes this worse. Traditional therapy practice is incredibly lonely. You spend most of your day in one-on-one sessions where you can't talk about your work with anyone outside the profession due to confidentiality requirements. You're constantly giving emotional support, but receiving very little in return. And here's something most people don't realize. Therapists have higher rates of depression and anxiety than the general population. We're drawn to this work partly because of our own experiences with mental health struggles, but the profession can actually worsen those struggles if proper support isn't available. The emotional labor is relentless. You hear about abuse, trauma, suicidal ideation, and human suffering for 8 to 10 hours a day. Then you're expected to go home and be present for your own family and relationships. The secondary trauma from constantly witnessing other people's pain takes a massive toll that most therapists aren't prepared for. Reason 3. Social media and online platforms offer better reach and income than traditional practice. This is where things get really complicated, and honestly, it's the reason I'm making this video instead of seeing clients in my office right now. A single viral TikTok can reach more people in 24 hours than I could help in a year of private practice sessions. The numbers are impossible to ignore. A therapist in private practice might help 20 to 30 people per week. A therapist with a social media following can potentially impact millions of people with the same amount of effort. For those of us who genuinely want to help as many people as possible, the choice becomes obvious even if it's ethically complicated. The income potential is also dramatically different. A traditional therapist might make $60,000 to $80,000 per year after overhead costs. A therapist with a strong online presence can make that same amount in a single month through sponsorships, courses, and affiliate partnerships. But here's where this gets ethically murky. The skills that make someone a good therapist don't necessarily translate to being good at social media. The intimate, slow, relationship-based work of therapy is completely different from creating engaging content for mass consumption. Some therapists thrive in this transition, while others lose what made them effective in the first place. The pressure to create content consistently can actually interfere with providing quality care. When you're thinking about how to turn your professional insights into viral videos, it changes how you approach the work itself. The line between helping people and entertaining people becomes increasingly blurred. And here's something that keeps me up at night. When we move from individual therapy to mass content creation, we lose the personalization that makes therapy effective. What works for one person might be harmful for another, but social media doesn't allow for that level of nuance and individual assessment. Reason number 4. The traditional therapy model is fundamentally broken for most people's needs. This is the big one that nobody in the profession wants to admit publicly. The 50-minute weekly session model was created decades ago and hasn't evolved to match how people actually need support in the modern world. Most mental health struggles don't conveniently fit into weekly scheduling. People have crises at 2 a.m. on weekends. They need support during panic attacks that happen at work. They benefit from brief check-ins throughout the week, more than one long session every 7 days. The traditional model also assumes that people can afford to take time off work, find childcare, and travel to an office during business hours every single week. For most working people, especially those in hourly jobs, this is completely unrealistic. We've created a mental health care system that's primarily accessible to people with flexible schedules and disposable income. But here's what's really broken about this system. We're still treating mental health like it's separate from everything else in people's lives. Traditional therapy happens in isolated environments, removed from where people actually live, work, and struggle. It's like trying to teach someone to swim in a classroom instead of in the water. The one-size-fits-all approach doesn't account for cultural differences, generational preferences, or individual learning styles. Some people process better through writing, others through movement, others through creative expression. But traditional therapy is still mostly talking in chairs, which doesn't work for everyone. The intake process alone is enough to discourage many people from seeking help. Having to call multiple offices, get on waiting lists, fill out extensive paperwork, and wait weeks or months for an appointment creates barriers that prevent people from getting support when they need it most. Reason number 5. Younger generations prefer digital and on-demand mental health support. This is a hard truth that many traditional therapists struggle to accept. but the data is clear. People under 30 are increasingly choosing app-based therapy, online support groups, and digital wellness tools over traditional in-person therapy. Generation Z and younger millennials grew up with instant access to information and support. When they're struggling, their first instinct is to search for solutions online, not to call a therapist's office and schedule an appointment 3 weeks out. They want immediate access to tools and strategies they can use right now. The stigma around mental health has decreased significantly for younger generations, but their expectations for how services should be delivered have completely changed. They expect mental health support to be as accessible and user-friendly as any other digital service they use. But here's what's interesting. It's not that they don't value professional expertise. They do. But they want that expertise delivered in formats that fit their lives and communication styles. They prefer text-based communication, video sessions, and asynchronous support over traditional face-to-face meetings. The subscription model appeals to them more than the fee-per-session model. They'd rather pay a monthly fee for ongoing access to resources and support than pay individually for sessions they might not be able to afford when they need them most. And honestly, many of the digital tools are genuinely effective for certain types of mental health support. Apps that provide cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, mindfulness training, and mood tracking can be incredibly helpful for people with mild to moderate anxiety and depression. Reason number 6. The liability and ethical complexities have become overwhelming. This is the reason that's pushing many experienced therapists out of practice entirely. The legal and ethical landscape of mental health care has become so complex that many of us spend more time worrying about liability than focusing on helping people. Every session is a potential lawsuit waiting to happen. If a client harms themselves or someone else, the therapist can be held legally responsible, even if they followed all appropriate protocols. The stress of carrying this level of responsibility for other people's safety is absolutely crushing. The documentation requirements have become absurd. Every session requires detailed notes that could potentially be subpoenaed in legal proceedings. This means therapists are constantly writing defensively rather than therapeutically, which changes the entire dynamic of the work. Insurance audits can happen at any time, requiring therapists to justify every decision they made months or years earlier. One documentation error can result in having to pay back thousands of dollars in insurance payments, even if the treatment was appropriate and effective. But here's what's really driving people away. The ethical guidelines haven't kept up with modern technology and social media. The rules about dual relationships and boundaries were written for a world where therapists and clients couldn't easily find each other online. Now clients can Google their therapists, follow them on social media, and create complex boundary issues that the profession hasn't figured out how to handle. The licensing boards are increasingly punitive rather than supportive. Instead of helping therapists navigate complex ethical situations, they often impose harsh penalties for minor infractions. This creates a culture of fear that makes it difficult to practice authentically and effectively. Now, here's what all of this means for you as someone who might need mental health support. The exodus of experienced therapists from traditional practice is creating a massive shortage of quality mental health care right when we need it most. Wait times for therapy appointments are getting longer. The therapists who remain in traditional practice are increasingly overbooked and burned out, which affects the quality of care they can provide. And the shift toward digital platforms means you need to be more careful than ever about who you're getting advice from. But it's not all bad news. The disruption in the mental health field is also creating opportunities for innovation and new models of care that might actually serve people better than the traditional system ever did. Some therapists are creating hybrid models that combine in-person sessions with digital support. Others are developing group programs that provide community and support alongside individual treatment. And yes, some are using social media and online platforms to reach people who never would have accessed traditional therapy. The key is learning to navigate this changing landscape intelligently. Not all digital mental health tools are created equal. Not all therapists who move online maintain the same standards they had in traditional practice. And not all mental health influencers have the training and experience to provide safe and effective support. So what should you do if you need mental health support in this changing landscape? First, don't give up on finding quality care just because the system is imperfect. There are still many excellent therapists practicing traditionally, and there are also innovative new approaches that might work better for your specific needs. Second, do your research. Whether you're looking for traditional therapy, digital tools, or online support, investigate the qualifications and approaches of anyone you're considering working with. Ask about their training, their experience, and their approach to treatment. Third, be realistic about what different types of support can and can't provide. Social media content and apps can be great for general wellness and education, but they can't replace professional treatment for serious mental health conditions. And finally, remember that the goal is finding what actually helps you, not what you think you're supposed to do. Some people thrive in traditional therapy. Others do better with digital tools. Many people benefit from a combination of approaches. The mental health field is changing rapidly, and that change is creating both challenges and opportunities. The therapists who are leaving traditional practice aren't necessarily abandoning the goal of helping people. Many of us are just finding new ways to do it that feel more sustainable and effective. So here's my challenge for you. Think about what kind of a mental health support would actually work best for your life, your schedule, and your preferences. Don't limit yourself to traditional models if they don't fit your needs, but don't abandon professional expertise just because it's packaged differently than it used to be. Drop a comment and let me know what your experience has been trying to access mental health care. Have you noticed longer wait times, burned out therapists, or difficulty finding affordable options? What innovations in mental health support have you found helpful? And if you found this information valuable, please share it with someone who might be struggling to find appropriate mental health support. Understanding why the system is changing can help people make better decisions about their own care. Subscribe if you want more content about navigating mental health care in the modern world and understanding how to find quality support in an increasingly complex landscape. Your mental health matters, and you deserve access to care that actually works for your life. The therapy field is evolving, and while that creates uncertainty, it also creates possibilities for better, more accessible, and more effective mental health support. The question is whether we can navigate that evolution in ways that truly serve the people who need help the most. What do you think the future of mental health care should look like? Let me know in the comments.